Hello, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm Sri Tips, and today we're going to be working on part 2 of the silver refining video. But before I get started on that, I'd like to address a couple of questions that were posted in some of the comments from part 1. The most prevalent question is, why didn't I melt the copper wire into a bar and use that to cement the silver out of the silver nitrate solutions? And the answer to that question is, it's not necessary. What it ends up doing is adding more time and expense to an already lengthy process. To prevent the little bits of copper from contaminating my cement silver, all I have to do is keep an eye on this coil of copper when it's in the silver nitrate solution, and when it starts to get real thin, I just pull it out, put it into my silver refining stock pot, and then add a fresh coil of copper wire. Another question that kept popping up is, what do I do with the waste that's produced from refining this silver? The waste is considerable. This is a large lot of silver for me at my level, and there's lots of waste that will be produced. What I'm going to do here is show a little bit of the waste treatment cycle that I use to treat this toxic waste and make it safe for disposal. That will be included in this video. Okay, without any further delay, we'll start part 2 of the silver refining video. Okay, we're going to begin part 2 right here. First off, everything's been sitting here for 2 days. It's my flatware that's been dissolved. This is the cement silver that's been cemented out with some copper wire. This is my waste treatment bucket for the silver refining waste. This is my waste bucket for the next step in the process to treat my waste. It's full. So what I need to do here is I need to move this, get it filtered, get it in these beakers so that I can cement it out. I need to get this solution out of here into this bucket so that any precious metals that remains in the solution can cement out on the copper that I have in there. I need to get this solution that's been sitting here for 2 days, has everything cemented out of it on the copper, get to my waste bucket, right? But I need to first empty my waste bucket into a empty bucket here so that I can treat the waste for disposal. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up and I'm going to do that all right now. Okay, first I'll move these things out of the way. Next thing I need to do is take the bubbler out of the waste bucket here. I just set it down in a container. I'm going to move the waste bucket up here so I can siphon the waste out of the waste bucket into this treatment bucket. Here's what's in the waste bucket. It's a piece of iron. I put all my, every bit of waste goes in here. And then any metals in solution will cement out on that piece of angle iron that's in there. It's all been cemented out now, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to siphon the solution out of this bucket here down into this waste treatment bucket down below. Let it all drain into this bucket so I can treat that with sodium hydroxide. Every bit of the waste that I produce from my gold and silver refining operations gets added to this blue bucket with the piece of angle iron in it. The metals that are in solution cement out onto the iron and fall to the bottom of the bucket as harmless metallic particles, and I just throw them away. what's in solution there, that green solution, will just be iron. If you look carefully at that piece of angle iron, you'll see some copper crystals have cemented out onto that piece of iron. Okay, this waste will get transferred outdoors. I've got an area out here where I treat this waste. I don't do it in my shop because of the fumes it produces. So I got me a little spot here out in the back where I'll set this up to treat the waste. Okay, treating this waste is pretty easy. All I really do is add some sodium hydroxide or lye, and this solution is going to be mostly iron. So I got a long glass rod here that I used to stir with, and I just pour the lye in like this. And then stir it up. What'll happen is the metals will precipitate out as their hydroxides. I do this to a pH of 9. I adjust this pH to 9 to make sure all the metals drop out. At higher pH, some other metals will go back into solution. So I want the pH at 9 for this operation. You've seen how it's turned color there. This is a bucket of waste that has been treated with sodium hydroxide. All the metals have been precipitated out as their hydroxides. And now what I do is I just scoop it out and I pour it into some filters here and filter it out to get all the hydroxide material out of the solution. Just pour it in a coffee filter here. What I'll do is let this material just drain through the filters there, and I'll let it dry out until it's like a moist cake, and then it can be safely disposed of. Under here, if you look, you'll see that there's some liquid in there. That's going to be a caustic liquid, and what I do with that is I add some pH decreaser to neutralize it to a pH of 7, and then that can just be poured down the drain safely. Now what I want to do is get this blue liquid, which is my silver refining waste, into my waste treatment bucket here that has pieces of angle iron in it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this down and put the blue solution up here on the fume hood so I can siphon it. Okay, I've got a tube here full of water. That's my copper nitrate solution. It's waste. Had all the precious metals cemented out of it. I'm going to transfer it down here into my waste bucket. But before I do, I'm going to put another piece of angle iron in here. This angle iron, what it'll do is it'll cement out the copper onto those pieces of iron. Okay, I've got the copper solution down here in my waste bucket. It's got some piece of angle iron in it. You can see the copper starting to cement out on the iron already. That pink colored metal right there is copper cementing out on the iron. That's what I want to see. What I'm going to do is I've got a bubbler here. Keep the solution moving. Got air moving through it. I just put it down into the bucket. There's a hole in the top here. I put it through there. And then stick it down in the bucket so I can get some stirring action out of that air bubbling through the solution. And I just keep it right down here below my fume hood. Okay, now I've got some room in my silver refining waste bucket there. It's got some solids down on the bottom of it. Looks like some copper chloride or something in there. I don't know what it is, but anyway, I'll recover the precious metals out of here. It's full of copper wire. I'm going to set that down here below my fume hood. And what I'll do now is bring back the two solutions that I've cemented the silver out with copper wire. And what I'm going to do now is siphon this into this bucket. Alright, now I've got a tube full of water, same drill. Go ahead and siphon the waste copper solutions out of these two jars into my silver waste bucket here. Okay, now what we'll do is take the copper out of here, out of these cementation buckets. I'm just going to stick it in here for right now as a temporary hold. As you can see, silver refining is much more detailed than gold refining. Set those off to the side. Now what I'll do is I'll go ahead and collect the cement silver in some funnels. Okay, whenever I'm doing this, I use a double filter paper in the funnel. And the reason for that is when I stir this metal, if I just got a single filter paper in there, it could tear the filter paper, cause it to fail, and I'd have to start all over again. I've found that by doubling up the filtering here, I can avoid having problems with the filter paper failing. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and get the silver in the filter funnel there. What I've got here is some boiling distilled water. I'm going to carefully rinse the silver out now, try to get all the blue solution out that I can with this boiling distilled water. Switch flasks now. This could go in the waste bucket over here that has the copper in it. Just pour that right in here now. So I'm just going to try to get this funnel off against the vacuum. Put it in this fresh flask. This can be poured in the bucket here. As waste, then we'll cement out any precious metals on the copper in there. And then I'm going to rinse this silver one more time with some more boiling distilled water. One more time. Notice the pale blue color of the solution draining down into the flask. That's an indication that all the copper has been rinsed out of this cement silver. I've turned the vacuum off. I'm going to go ahead and put the silver up here out of the way. And what I'm going to do now is, this is distilled water with a little bit of copper in it, and it's still good, can be used for cementing silver out later on. So I'm going to go ahead and pour it in this container right here and save it. Distilled water with a little bit of copper in it. It's still usable, so I'm going to save it. Okay, one more rinse. This is hot tap water this time, not distilled water, it's tap water. We'll give it one more good rinse here, and then we'll put this cement silver in a container and dry it out. Notice that the solution going into the flask is nearly colorless. I need to take the silver now and put it in a dish and dry it off. So I need to gain some room here. I got to move all this stuff out of the way before I proceed. I want to do that on camera, so what I'm doing makes sense. Get these out of the way. I'm just going to, now I'm getting out of here. Now what we're going to do is, I've got a dish here, casserole dish. I'm just going to take the funnel here. You got to remember, this is a plastic funnel. I'm just going to slam it into the dish here to get the silver out. Just like that. It comes out in a nice cake. It's all out of the funnel there. Put it right on the heat here. Turn it on some low heat. And we'll let that go ahead and dry out the silver powder. Okay, while our silver powder is back here drying, I'm going to go ahead and set the filter flask up here for another filtering to get some more of the silver powder out of that copper solution. I use 2 filters here. The reason I do that is because when the filters get wet, they get real weak. They don't have much strength to them at all, so I put 2 filters together in here to form a double filter to try to keep the filter strengthened, so that when I stir it with a stirring rod, it won't break the filter. Now what I'll do is transfer the rest of this silver from the first beaker into the funnel. And that'll free up this beaker so I can use it for cementing out the other silver from the flatware. We'll go ahead and start putting this silver in there now as well. A piece of copper in there. Some copper wires in there. I'll try to get them out. They'll break the filter paper. Boiling distilled water. I'm going to go ahead and rinse the silver powder with some boiling distilled water now. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and transfer the flask now. Dump this in my waste bucket. rinse with boiling distilled water here. As before, what I'll do here is save this distilled water. It can be reused. Put in this jug here. I'm going to do one more rinse here with boiling tap water. There's a piece of copper wire. Try to get that out of there. I decided to do a second rinse with some more tap water here, hot tap water. There's another piece of copper wire. Should rinse it out pretty good there. Now I'll take the funnel, put the silver in it, put it in this casserole dish here. Just like that. And then we'll stick this over here on some low heat and let that dry out. I'm going to freeze up these two beakers for cementing out more silver from the flatware. I've got my filter flask set up down here. I got a tube of water, and what I'll do is go ahead and siphon this solution now into my filter flask. While my silver solution filters here, I'm going to go ahead and look at my cement silver. I've got a spoon here that's ice cold, and I can tell when this stuff is dry by holding that spoon over the silver. And if I don't see any condensate form on that spoon, like I don't see it, that means that this silver is bone dry. It's been on here a couple hours drying. And they're both bone dry, so I'm going to go ahead and turn the heat off here and get these dishes of silver out of here so we can continue with the process here. I'll take the silver paper out and put that in with my silver paper storage over here. Just got some plastic bags here. I just stick this in. One of these days I'll process all those filters and get the silver out of them. I've got all the silver siphoned out of these beakers now from the flatware. It's filtering down here. I've got some the jewelry items left to dissolve yet. Over here I found I had some more solutions from my gold refining operations that have silver in them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this liquid, add it to these beakers to dissolve the rest of the flatware and to dissolve the jewelry items. I've got this silver solution here from my gold refining operations. It's full of silver and it still has active nitric acid in it. So I'm going to pour it in these beakers to continue dissolving the silver out of them. I'll set these back on the burners and start adding some heat. Get the rest of the silver dissolved. Now I'm going to incinerate the jewelry items here. I'm just going to move it into this dish over here. It's just a big melt dish, and burn it off a little bit. I'm going to save a little bit in reserve in case I overshoot with the nitric in here, and I need some additional silver to consume some excess nitric acid. Incineration is usually the first step in any refining process. It burns off the oils and greases off the metal and prevents that scum from building up in the reaction beaker there. Now I'm going to put the silver in the jars here so they can dissolve. I'm going to put most of it in this jar because this jar has more flatware left in it. So most of the silver jewelry that I just incinerated is going to go in this jar here. I can do this while you can watch me on the camera there. And then I'll just put a few pieces over here to try to even it out. Okay, while I'm waiting for this silver back here to dissolve, I'm going to go ahead and get the silver concentrated solution that I just filtered and start adding it to these beakers to cement out the silver out of that solution. This is distilled water that I saved earlier from the rinses, and what I'll do is add this to the beaker. You want to dilute this concentrated silver nitrate solution before we go to cementing the silver out. If we left the concentrated solution undiluted, then what will happen is, this is more distilled water. What happens is the concentrate will form a passive layer of silver on the pieces of copper wire, and the cementation process will cease. So we want to dilute that with some distilled water before we get started. Here's the copper that I saved from the last cementing operation. I'm going to go ahead and use this in this cementing operation here. What we're going to try to do today is demonstrate how to do this without letting those little pieces of copper form in the beaker. So we're going to add 3 to this one and 3 to this one, and what I'll do is pour some concentrate in now. Now this is a piece of silver pipe that I used in the last operation. Here's our concentrate. Here goes the concentrate into the solution with the copper. That's about 750 ml of concentrate in there with 1500 ml of distilled water. As you'll see in a moment, this will end up being too much of the highly concentrated silver nitrate solution. And the same for that one. Just stir it up here with a stirring rod, get the solution mixed up real good. Okay, what's happened here is I've added too much of the concentrate. It's formed a passive layer over the copper, and the cementing process is not working. In the next segment, what I'll try to do is add some nitric acid to kickstart it. Some free nitric acid is required for this reaction. Here's some nitric acid. I'm going to pour about 1 ml in each beaker here. That should be enough to get this started. Now I'm going to stir it up. Here I'm starting to get a little frustrated, but this will end up being a valuable lesson in silver refining on how not to add too much of that concentrate when cementing the silver on copper. Okay, here's some of the joys of silver refining. I've got the copper wire in there, and for one of two reasons. It's not cementing out. See how white that is? It's probably formed a heavy passive layer on the copper coils. So I'm just going to take these out, put them in the waste bucket, and start over. See how white that is? That's a heavy passive layer of silver on there so that the silver nitrate solution can't contact the copper and cement out. So I'm just going to throw this in my waste bucket and start over. Now I've got some fresh copper coils here. I've got some more distilled water. I'm going to dilute this down a little further. See if we can get this to start cementing out properly. Before I go all in and put a bunch more copper in there and have it do the same thing, I'm just going to stick one piece in at a time. Just submerge it a little bit and see what happens here. See if we get the same reaction. If I do, then I'll have to adjust something to get the silver to start cementing out properly. That's looking much better. I think we're going to be good now. I've got the proper concentration of silver in there and some fresh wire. I think I'll go ahead and add all the wire now, and we'll go ahead and start this process. Alright, here we go. See what this is going to do over here. Yeah, it's looking right. That's looking right. It's been about 5 minutes since I added the water and the fresh silver or fresh copper coils there, and everything seems to be moving nicely now. I had to get everything adjusted correctly in order to make this reaction take place properly. It's a good thing we've seen that on the video here. Shows you what can happen if your solution is over concentrated or if you get a passive layer formed on your copper coils. It's been about 30 minutes since I added that fresh copper, and looks like things are going okay here. Stir it up a little bit, and I'm getting a little bit of heat and a little bit of stuff floating on top. That's probably from the nitric acid that I added earlier to try to jumpstart the cementation process. But that'll consume, that'll get used up in here. I didn't add that much, so we should be okay. Everything looks like it's going okay now. Silver's been cementing now for about an hour and a half, and I'm going to go ahead and stir this up now. We're going to check things out in here. This is looking right. This one's looking good. One of the questions in the comment section from part 1 was, how can I tell when the silver's cemented out? You see that pink colored metal there? That means the silver has come out of solution in that beaker. Over here, if you look at this, you'll see that there's still silver forming on the copper. That's that gray powder on the copper there. That means this solution still has silver in it, and that's how I tell the difference. All right, back here, the last of the silver still dissolving. I've got some 50-50 dilute nitric I'm going to add slowly here. What I'm going to do now is I've got some more concentrate here. And I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit more concentrate to each of these beakers. Not very much, maybe about, I'll say 500 ml or so. Actually, I'm going to only add about 250 ml there. Stir it up. Now, after adding that fresh silver nitrate concentrate, when I pull these pieces of copper up out of here, you're going to see that they're coated with a silver coating, silver powder. That's how I can tell if the solution still has silver in it or not. When I pull the copper out and it's loaded with silver like that, that means that there's still silver cementing out in this solution. It's been about 5 hours since I first started doing this. I'm going to check on these pieces of wire now. They're still in pretty decent shape. They're getting thinner. You can tell they're thinner. I'm going to leave them in there a little longer. And what we'll do is before these things can get so thin that they start breaking off and leaving pieces of little pieces of copper wire in my silver, I'll take these out and put some fresh coils in, and that'll eliminate the small pieces of copper wire that get in there and contaminate the cement silver. Now this one's significantly smaller. In fact, if you look right there, that guy is so thin he's getting ready to break off. I'm going to go ahead and pull these out now and put them in the waste bucket and put some new copper coils in this bucket right here. Yeah, he's getting real thin, so I'm not going to let it stay in there any longer. Go ahead and put it in the waste bucket, and we'll put some new copper coils in this one. Alright, I just inserted these fresh copper coils here. As you can see, silver's still forming on it, so there's still silver in here that's cementing out on those fresh copper coils. Getting ready to call it a night. In this beaker, the copper coils are nice and fat, so I'm not worried about them being too thin and breaking off overnight. On this side, these are kind of thin. I'm not going to leave that in there all night. I'm going to put this in the waste bucket over here. I keep calling this my waste bucket. It's actually my silver refining stock pot. And I'm going to go ahead and put the small copper coils that's been in the solution here. And I'm going to put some fresh fat ones in there. And that way we can avoid getting little pieces of silver or little pieces of copper in with our cement silver. Stir these up real good. Leave these sit in here overnight. Cement the rest of the silver out. Alright, before I retire, I'm going to go ahead and try to get the rest of this concentrate into these beakers so they can cement out overnight on that fresh copper wire that I just added. See if we can get it all in there. Give it a quick stir here, and in the morning you should be able to come out, have plenty of cement silver in these two beakers. I don't know if you can tell, but working with this silver is a real, I shouldn't say pain in the butt, but it really is. I mean, it's a lot more steps, a lot more involved in gold refining. A lot more messy, a lot more things to go wrong. But this is what we go through if we want to get some pure silver crystal. It is day number 6, the following morning, and what I've got here is my cement silver. Been cemented out. I'm going to stir this up real good. And what I'm going to do, I believe here, is go ahead and wrap this part of the video up. This silver is cemented out. What I'll do is I'll drain this off into my silver refining stock pot. Get the cement silver out in a funnel rinse it out real good, put it into a casserole dish and dry it like I did this. Back here, the rest of my flatware has been dissolved. That'll get filtered out and then added to these beakers and cemented out as before. And I'll collect up all the cement silver. And in part 3 of the video, what I'll do is I'll melt this cement silver up into some silver shot, and then we'll construct a small silver cell and show how to turn the silver shot into pure silver crystal. One more thing I just wanted to point out, that I've demonstrated how you can use the copper wire and not contaminate the cement silver with bits of copper wire by taking the wire out as it thins out and adding fresh coils. You can see here it's nice and fat still. Same thing over here. So using the wire is just fine, just like it is. Don't have to melt it into bars. If you just keep an eye on the pieces of wire, when they start to get real thin, take them out and put fresh coils in. Okay, this will conclude part 2 of the silver refining video. I hope I answered some questions in this video about the waste treatment, about how I can tell when the silver is cemented out of the solutions on the copper, and also about how to go ahead and use copper wire to cement the silver out of the silver nitrate solutions. You can use it. It's not a problem. Just got to keep an eye on it, and when it gets real thin, take it out and put some fresh coils in. Okay, in part 3 of the video, what I'm going to do is melt the cement silver into shot, and then I'm going to show how to construct a small 1 liter electrolytic silver cell. I'm going to use a power supply from an old scrap PC computer and a 1 liter beaker, and we'll assemble that, operate it, and produce some pure silver crystal with it. And we'll do that in part 3, coming up very soon. Thanks for watching.